The more we study the past of Central Asia, the more we know about the great role of this region in the history of world culture. However, ancient history of Central Asia is not adequately and fully covered in sources. The new historical series, Civilizations of Central Asia, will bridge this gap, because the historical mission of Central Asia is to unite, to absorb spiritual impulses of Europe and Asia, and to introduce new creations of human spirit to the world. Watch documentary series Civilizations of Central Asia on Kazakh TV channel. Central Asia is an ancient land about which many different legends and epics were composed. The most mysterious secrets of the East are hidden there. The most famous talented people filled the countries of Central Asia with their beautiful creations. Our story is about it, great and mysterious. Ancient Bactria. The first record of Bactrians in ancient literature was made by Aeschylus in the Persians. Emergence of statehood in Bactria belongs to a very ancient age. The story of Diodorus of Sicily about the legendary campaign of Ninus and Semiramis to this country is preserved. Diodorus in this episode of his work arranged the data of Theseus and later authors. Based on Diodorus's data, we can say that our sources about the ancient past of Bactria are very fragmentary and fantastic. We have more reliable information about the period when Bactria was under the rule of the Persian Achaemenids' power. For the history of Bactria, Achaemenid time, described by ancient authors, two questions were the most important. The first is the time of its conquest by the Achaemenids. The second is the position of Bactria in the Achaemenid state. Despite the scarcity of our sources, it's known that the founder of the Achaemenid state, the Persian king Cyrus, conquered Media, Armenia in 546 BC, the Lydian kingdom of Croesus, and in 539 BC took Babylon by storm. Cyrus II the Great died in 530 BC in the battle against the Massagetians, nomads of present-day Central Asia. In the year of Cyrus's death, Bactria was definitely subdued. In 522 BC, Bactria is mentioned in the famous Behustan inscription as an Achaemenid dependency, inherited by Darius I. Al-Hab, the tributary of the Amud Darya. In ancient times, Bactria had borders with the following states: Sogdiana, north, Arachosia, southwest, What was found in the latest 1970s, it helped to open to the world intermediate civilization between the Far East, including Hindustan, and the Middle East, the Western Asia, the Mediterranean, etc. And this intermediate position of those cultures, in particular Bactrian, it dictated their uniqueness. And we see there some features characteristic for the Middle East. And we see some influence of Hindustan up to Northern Europe, where there was massive migration of Aryans and Indo-Europeans. Thus, we can talk about the most ancient Bactrian, Proto-Bactrian layer as a layer of Dravidian culture.
На основании этого мы можем говорить о самом древнем бактрийском, протобактрийском слое, как о слое дравидской культуры.
Ninus made a campaign against the Bactrians, where he married Semiramis, the most famous of all the women we knew. Diodorus, Historical Library. It's known about existence of the Bactria-Margiana archaeological complex, one of the Bronze Age civilizations, that existed in the territory of eastern Turkmenistan, southern Uzbekistan, northern Afghanistan, and western Tajikistan from the 23rd to 18th centuries BC, at the same time with the Indian civilization in Pakistan and the Old Babylonian kingdom in Mesopotamia. The name of Victor Sarianidi is put on a par with the names of Henry Schliemann, who discovered Troy, and Howard Carter, who found the tomb of Tutankhamun. In the list of its archaeological trophies, Bactrian gold is one of the most expensive and large treasures of the planet. Another great discovery is the previously unknown ancient state of Margiana, which existed on the territory of northern Turkmenistan almost 40 centuries ago. School textbooks claim that at that time there were only 4 serious civilizations: Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, and India. Sarianidi added a 5th to them. Then, in the 3rd-2nd millennium BC, the territory of the Karakum Desert in the delta of the Murgab River existed the country Margush. The ancient Greeks called it Margiana. Victor Ivanovich Sarianidi was born in 1929 in Tashkent in a Greek Pontic family. He graduated from the history faculty of Tashkent University. When he was a student, he took part in the excavations of the Ulugh Beg Observatory in Samarkand. Since 1972, he led the Margiana expedition in Turkmenistan. In 1978, Sarianidi found in the north of Afghanistan, in the royal necropolis of the early Kushan time, a large number of gold items. Sarianidi is the author of more than 30 books and more than 200 articles. He has awards from Greece, Turkmenistan, and Afghanistan. He even received a nickname among his colleagues, Lev Karakum. Schliemann discovered Troy. Most of the great civilizations have their own discoverers. He was the discoverer of Bactria. Prior to this, it was viewed only from a written source, and written sources were often separated from the events they described for centuries, that is, 100, 200 years old. We mainly use ancient Greek sources, and Greece was far from the Central Asia. And to reveal to the world archaeological riches, it was his great merit. Not only obstinacy of the archaeologist, but also the ability to describe and popularize his findings. Bactria owed him its discovery as one of the ancient civilizations of the world, as one of the unique cultures that existed in our region.
Как одну из самобытных культур, которые существовали в нашем регионе.
The richest treasures in the history of archaeology. 1978, Afghanistan. The expedition of Victor Sarianidi unearthed about 20,000 gold ornaments of the 1st century BC. The cost of the find is about $100 million. This find is called Bactrian gold. The Bactrians spoke the so-called Zend language, which is also called the Old Bactrian language. In ancient times, Bactria, which original history is covered with the darkness of legends, was the seat of the great founder of religion and lawmaker Zoroaster. Uninhabited now, semi-desert located in the north of Afghanistan and southern Turkmenistan in the 2nd millennium BC was a real paradise for ancient farmers. The high water rivers that take their origin in the Hindu Kush mountains were lost in the sands of the left bank of the river Amu Darya. Fertile lands along both banks of these rivers were the optimal conditions for farming. However, it's strange that only hunters and fishermen wandered here, categorically unwilling to engage in more profitable farming in these fertile lands. However, in the neighboring areas of Central Asia, there was an acute shortage of areas suitable for farming, and entire tribes began to break away from their places in search of new irrigated lands. No one knows exactly where they came from and where their homeland was, but we know for sure that their way was from the west to the east. After passing the Shibergan oasis, they finally reached the Bactrian plain lands. The eternal spirit of the discoverers led their wanderers into the promised land of the great Bactrian plain.
Видимо, продвинулся Каспий на восток.
Apparently, the Caspian Sea moved to the east when the hydrocarbon changed. Winds changed, climates changed. Thanks to that, there appeared fertile lands which were not inhabited before, or were underpopulated, or were not used as intensively as newcomers did. There is a theory that they were Indo-European tribes, or they were Dravidian tribes who moved to the east. Indo-Europeans also went to the east, someone from the north, someone from the south.
Они, это, вот, как я уже говорил, дравидийские племена, которые шли на восток. Ну, индоевропейцы, в принципе, тоже шли на восток, только кто-то с севера, кто-то с юга.
There were other possible directions leading from Iran to the borders of Turkmenistan. Victor Sarianidi. It's very significant that no one lived here before the colonists' arrival, and these lands were not to be conquered. This is an accurate documentary fact. People moved here with all their belongings, cattle, children, and household. And the colonists with enviable energy began to settle in a new place, following customs and traditions of their former homeland. Clay and water, the main building materials in Asia, were literally under the feet of the newcomers. In the most convenient places, near the running water and future plowed fields, dozens of hundreds of multi-room houses emerged, forming innumerable settlements. The walls of such houses, made of mud bricks, were carefully coated with clay. Strong doors were installed, and small windows were a bit dull, but still gave light. Each settlement consisted of hundreds of such houses. As a rule, settlements of ancient farmers didn't have bypass walls and were not fortified. But the houses of wealthy Bactrians were already small fortresses. Time-consuming and expensive facilities proved that emerging wealthy people began to seize power. At first, there were enough lands and water for people. However, soon the rapid growth of population caused the shortage of land suitable for life, and new oases emerged, inhabited mainly by people from neighboring lands. The right bank of the Amudarya River in the territory of present-day southern Uzbekistan so was inhabited. Economic reasons, absence of an external enemy, short life of household stuff. Unfortunately, these facts reduce the opportunity for analysis, for representation of these things. Therefore, there are different assumptions regarding their origin. We cannot even trace their genotypes clearly. But we know who were their neighbors. We know that there was an intensive trade. At that time, the trade between Central Asia and India started, and with the Middle East too. I'm sure that there was a powerful turnover with the steppe part. And knowing these facts, we make an assumption. According to academician Vavilov, the most widespread agricultural crop, wheat, originated in the territory of Bactria. We can talk about such powerful contribution of our region, large Central Asia, into the world economic history. And nomadic, through domestication of horses, and agricultural, through cultivation of wheat, the basis of agriculture in the world till nowadays.
В мировую хозяйственную историю именно и кочевую через домашние лошади, и земледельческую через окультуривание пшеницы, основы сельского хозяйства, наверное, до сих пор всего мира.
In ancient times, the rivers united people, and there is a reason to suppose the existence of one ancient people in this territory. Victor Sarianidi. This is the general historical background of ancient Bactria, a country of mysterious and original culture, which was destined to play an important role in the history of this part of the ancient Eastern world. Geographical features of Bactria strongly influenced the history, economy and culture of this country. Being an isolated region, Bactria was at the same time located in the central part of Eurasia, which led to the formation of its unique culture. Since the conquest of Bactria by the Achaemenids, this country has become a buffer zone between the nomadic world of the Scythians and the civilizations of the Middle East. This role Bactria played until the fall of Greco-Bactria, conquered by nomads who came from the north. Thus, the history of ancient Bactria was closely connected with the largest Middle Eastern monarchies, the Achaemenid state, Alexander's power, and the Seleucid kingdom. The neighboring nomads also influenced greatly. That is why the Bactrian culture is considered semi-nomadic. During the Hellenistic period, Bactria was under the rule of Europeans Hellenes, which supplemented its exceptional identity, the fusion of three great cultures: Persian, Scythian, and Greek. Bactria was a part of the Achaemenid Empire since the days of Cyrus the Great. At that time, 540 years BC, it was a Persian satrapy and rendered tribute regularly, but it was always an explosive place. The chronicles of the reigns of Xerxes, 486–465 BC, and Artaxerxes I, 465–424 BC, prove that under their rule, insurrections, riots and insurgencies occurred very often.
Насколько можно судить, Бактрия попала в зависимость еще Мидии.
As far as we can judge, Bactria became dependent on Media. This state was adjacent to the Persians. It was conquered by the Persians. The conquest of Media paved the way for the subordination of Bactria to the Persian state. Darius's father was the governor. He headed this satrapy. Perhaps Darius himself spent his youth there, got the skills of a future ruler. We remember that he was the ruler of the Persian Empire at a time of crisis, at a time when it could disappear. After all, the heirs of Cyrus, Cambas and Bardia didn't share it. There was a civil war. The largest part of the satrapy was lost. Actually, Darius acted like a fire brigade, suppressing the uprisings here and there, until he united the Persian Empire again.
Не поделили ее. Возникла гражданская война, большинство сатрапий отпало. Практически Дарий действовал в режиме пожарной команды, подавляя восстания там, пока не собрал снова единую персидскую державу в один кулак.
And Artam from Bactria, who led 30,000 black cavalry in the battle, forever in that region rested. Aeschylus, the Persians. The courage shown by Masister, Xerxes' brother and the satrap of Bactria, on a campaign against Greece was described by Aeschylus in the Persians. So Masister fought like a simple warrior near Salamis. Considering the hatred of the Hellenes for the Persians, it's difficult to reproach Herodotus and Aeschylus for the partial praise of their enemies. It's not accidental that Aeschylus singles out Bactrians and Saka in the Persian army, putting their fighting efficiency above the god of the immortal Xerxes. It's worth mentioning the personalities of the Bactrian satraps who were close to the ruling Achaemenids. Usually Bactria was under the rule of the younger princes of Achaemenid dynasty. From the Persian history of Ctesias, we know that this tradition was introduced by Cyrus, who put his son Temioxarch in charge of Bactria and some other satrapies. For instance, Alexander of Macedon, when he came in the late 4th century BC to the territory of Bactria, he saw prosperous cities, great civilization. He saw that there were no slaves, that people were free, while slavery flourished in ancient Greece during this period. He saw absolutely different people there, developed agriculture, fragrant cities, blossoming gardens. And of course he was shocked. In the 4th century BC, the mentality of ancient Greeks had been changing as they moved eastward, and they saw a lot going through the east. They saw that civilization developed not only in ancient Greece, but there is another world where other people live, and they live better than they. Alexander moved to the eastern countries, and some obeyed him, and he pardoned them. And who resisted him, he betrayed the edge of the sword. Alexandria. Bactria, we saw, were the center of a strong and rather developed civilization, capable of resisting attacks by nomadic tribes from the east and Scythians from the north. The Scythians were dangerous not only for Sogdiana and Bactria, but for the whole Iran.
После осады нескольких крепостей македонянами сагдийская и бактрийская знать переходит на сторону Александра.
After siege of several fortified fortresses by the Macedonians, the Bactrian and Sogdian nobles crossed over to Alexander's side. Bactrian and Sogdiana cavalry took part in the further campaigns of Alexander. Moreover, Alexander married a daughter of the noble and influential Bactrian Oxiad, Roxane, with whom, as Arian said, he fell in love at first sight. Roxane was the only wife of Alexander who gave birth to his heir, so in the latter tradition she becomes the only wife of the king and becomes the daughter of Darius. Soon after the death of Alexander, Bactria passed under the rule of Seleucid kingdoms. During this period, Hellenistic culture spread across the state territory. Greek cities were built. Around 255 BC, the satrap of Bactria, the Greek Diodotus, proclaimed himself a king and announced the formation of an independent Greco-Bactrian state which continued to exist for almost 100 years. The Greco-Bactrian kingdom ceased to exist with the arrival of Tohar nomads from the steppes of Central Asia. During this period, the state was called Toharistan.
Но об этом в наших следующих сериях.